My stomach dropped as the flames engulfed my trash bin, the bright orange glow illuminating the midnight shadows. The GPS beacon inside, a secret federal tracker, was about to expose Karen from the HOA in a way she could never recover from. This was war, and I was about to win. I stared in horror as the bin crackled and melted, the plastic warping under the intense heat. The acrid stench of burning plastic stung my eyes, but I couldn't look away. This was personal. Karen from the HOA had gone too far this time. It had started a year ago when I moved into the ritzy gated community. As soon as I unpacked the last box, Karen appeared on my doorstep, a fake smile plastered across her perfect Botoxed face. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she chirped, thrusting a stack of rules and regulations into my hands. "I'm the head of the HOA, and we take our community standards very seriously around here." I skimmed the pages, my brow furrowing. No trash cans visible from the street. Strict color palettes for front doors and shutters. A ban on political signs or flags. I looked up at Karen, who was watching me intently. "Is there a problem?" she asked sweetly. "Oh, no problem," I lied, forcing a smile. "I'm sure I can manage all this." Karen nodded, satisfied. "Wonderful. I'll be keeping an eye on you." And she had. Over the next year, I received constant citations and warnings from the HOA. My trash can was too close to the curb. My front door color was slightly off. My Halloween decorations were up a week too early. Each time, Karen would show up at my door, sickeningly sweet, demanding I fix the violations immediately. I gritted my teeth and complied, seething with resentment. But deep down, I knew Karen was just power tripping, using her position to bully the new guy. Well, not anymore. A few weeks ago, I'd had enough. I made a trip to a shady electronics shop downtown and purchased a high-tech GPS tracker, small enough to hide inside my trash can. If Karen wanted to keep harassing me, I'd give her something to really worry about. And now, as I watched my bin go up in flames, I knew the plan had worked. Karen had taken the bait. Somewhere, that little beacon was pinging its location, ready to expose her for the unhinged psychopath she truly was. I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling with adrenaline, and opened the tracking app. The dot was moving rapidly down the street, Karen's sit-in speeding away from the scene of the crime. "That's right, you bitch," I muttered. "Run." I jumped in my car and peeled out of the driveway, following the blinking GPS dot as it raced through the dark, winding streets of the neighborhood. My heart pounded in my ears, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was finally going to catch that vile witch in the act. Ahead, the dot abruptly turned down a long, secluded driveway, disappearing from view. I slowed my car, creeping forward cautiously. The driveway led to an imposing mansion, its towering white columns and manicured landscaping a stark contrast to the modest homes surrounding it. So this was where the queen of the HOA resided. I pulled over and killed the engine, staring up at the house. Lights were on in several windows, but the driveway itself was dark and empty. Had Karen already gone inside? I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, debating my next move. Should I just confront her directly? Call the police? Part of me wanted to storm up to the front door and demand an explanation, to finally get the upper hand against this tyrannical woman. But then, what if she denied everything? Without proof, it would be my word against hers. And knowing Karen, she'd probably just cry victim and play the innocent little old lady card. No, I needed something more concrete. Something that would bring her down for good. My gaze traveled to the GPS tracker app on my phone. The dot was still there, stationary on the map. I took a deep breath and opened the app, zooming in on the location. According to the detailed satellite imagery, the tracker was sitting in the middle of a large, circular driveway at the back of the property. That was it. That was my proof. I'd catch Karen red-handed, disposing of the evidence. With renewed determination, I started the car and crept forward, navigating the long driveway until I reached the back of the mansion. Sure enough, there was the blackened, twisted remains of my trash bin, still smoldering in the moonlight. I parked the car and bolted out, rushing over to inspect the bin. The GPS tracker was nowhere to be seen. Karen must have removed it. But that didn't matter. I had her. Karen. I shouted, storming up to the back patio door. I know what you did. The door flew open, and there she stood, her carefully coiffed hair a wild mess, her face contorted with rage. You, she hissed. How dare you trespass on my property? I held up my phone, the GPS app still open. I have proof, Karen. Proof that you burned my trash bin. You're finished. Her eyes widened in horror, and for a moment, I saw the mask of civility slip, revealing the true, unhinged Karen beneath. We'll see about that, she growled. And with that, she slammed the door in my face. I stood there, stunned, as the sound of the slamming door echoed through the night. Had she really just slammed the door in my face? After everything she'd done, after being caught red-handed? Fury boiled up inside me, and I pounded on the door, shouting her name. But there was no response, only the distant sound of voices and shuffling footsteps inside the house. Gritting my teeth, I turned and stalked back to my car, mind racing. I had to do something, but what? Call the police? They'd just dismiss it as a petty neighborhood dispute. No, I needed a more direct approach. As I pulled out of the driveway, an idea slowly began to form. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier. I had the proof, the smoking gun that would bring her down. All I had to do was find the right way to use it. I drove home, mind whirring with possibilities. When I reached my house, I hurried inside and straight to my computer, booting it up and opening a new document. Time to get to work. For the next several hours, I typed furiously, crafting a meticulously detailed report. I laid out the entire history of my conflict with Karen, from the moment she first accosted me with her ridiculous HOA rules to the recent escalation, culminating in the trash bin arson. I included screenshots of the GPS app, the time-stamped location data clearly showing Karen's involvement. Once I was satisfied with the report, I printed it out and placed it in a manila envelope, sealing it shut. Then I turned my attention to the internet, searching for the right contacts to reach out to. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. A local investigative journalist known for exposing corruption in the community. I quickly drafted an email, outlining the situation and attaching the report as evidence. My fingers hovered over the send button for a moment, pulse pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. If the journalist took the bait, it could set off a chain reaction that would bring Karen crashing down. But if he didn't? I took a deep breath and pressed send. The deed was done. Now, all I could do was wait and see if my plan would work. I glanced out the window, the night sky slowly giving way to the first hints of dawn. I hadn't slept a wink, but I didn't care. Karen's reign of terror was about to come to an end. The next few days were a blur of anticipation and anxiety. I waited anxiously for any response from the investigative journalist, checking my email obsessively and jumping at every phone call. Karen, on the other hand, had gone completely silent. There were no more angry knocks on my door, no more bogus citations. It was as if she had vanished. Just when I was starting to worry that my plan had fallen through, the email finally arrived. Wow, this is quite a story, the journalist wrote. I'd love to look into this further. Can we set up a time to chat? My heart raced as I quickly responded, arranging a meeting for the following day. This was it, my chance to take Karen down for good. The next morning, I met the journalist at a local cafe, handing over the manila envelope with the detailed report. He scanned through the pages, brow furrowing with each passing moment. This is quite the situation you've got here, he murmured, flipping to the GPS tracking data. And you're sure this is legit? Absolutely, I assured him. Karen's been terrorizing me for over a year, and now she's escalated to actual arson. I have to stop her before she does something even worse. The journalist nodded, his expression growing more serious. Okay, well, I'm going to need some time to review all this and verify the information. But if what you're saying is true, I think we've got a major story on our hands. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. So you'll do it? You'll expose her. I'll do my best, he said. But you have to understand, this kind of investigative reporting can be a delicate process. I need to make sure we have all our ducks in a row before we go public. I nodded, trying to tamp down my impatience. I understand. Just, please, hurry. I'm worried about what Karen might do next. The journalist gave me a reassuring smile. Don't worry. I'll be in touch. He tucked the envelope into his bag and stood, shaking my hand. Try to stay out of trouble in the meantime, okay? As I watched him leave, a wave of relief washed over me. Finally, the tide was turning. Karen's reign of terror was about to come crashing down, and I would be there to witness her downfall. But little did I know, the worst was yet to come. Over the next few days, I waited anxiously for the journalist to follow up. I kept a close eye on the neighborhood, but there was still no sign of Karen. Had she gone into hiding, realizing the noose was tightening around her neck? Then, just as I was starting to lose hope, my phone rang. It was the journalist, his voice urgent and strained. I need to meet with you immediately, he said. Something's come up, and it's not good. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? What happened? Just, please, can you come to the cafe as soon as possible? He insisted. This is serious. I hurried to the cafe, my mind racing with possibilities. Had Karen somehow discovered the journalist's investigation? Or worse, had she taken matters into her own hands and tried to silence him? When I arrived, the journalist was waiting for me, his face pale and drawn. He gestured for me to sit down, then slid a stack of papers across the table. I did some more digging on that GPS tracker you gave me, he said, his voice unsteady, and I found some interesting information. I flipped through the papers, the blood draining from my face as I read. According to the documents, the GPS tracker I had purchased was not a simple consumer device. It was a highly sophisticated federal tracking unit, reported stolen from a government facility weeks ago. Oh my God! I breathed, the realization hitting me like a ton of bricks. This is bad, isn't it? The journalist nodded grimly. Very bad. Whoever you bought this from, they're in serious trouble. And by extension, so are you. But I didn't know. I protested, panic rising in my chest. I just wanted to catch Karen in the act, I swear. I had no idea it was government property. I believe you, the journalist said, raising a hand. But the authorities are going to see it differently. This is federal property theft, a serious crime. And with the added element of you using it to illegally surveil your neighbor. He shook his head. You could be looking at jail time. My world seemed to tilt on its axis. Jail time? For trying to expose Karen's misdeeds? It didn't seem fair. It didn't seem right. There has to be something we can do, I pleaded. Please, you have to help me. The journalist sighed heavily. I wish I could, but I can't get involved in this. It's way bigger than me or you. The best thing you can do is come clean, cooperate with the authorities, and hope for leniency. I stared at him, disbelief and despair warring within me. All my plans, all my efforts to take Karen down, it had all been for nothing. Worse than nothing, it had put me in the crosshairs of the law. As the gravity of the situation sank in, a single, terrifying thought crystallized in my mind. I was completely and utterly screwed. The next few days passed in a blur of anxiety and uncertainty. I waited anxiously for the other shoe to drop, expecting federal agents to kick down my door at any moment. but they never came. Instead, there was a knock on my door, and when I opened it, I found Karen standing there, a smug expression on her face. "Well, well, well," she drawled. "Looks like your little plan didn't quite work out, did it?" My mouth went dry as I stared at her, stunned. How did you know?" Karen let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, please. You really thought you could outsmart me? I've been 2 steps ahead of you this whole time." She stepped past me, waltzing into my home as if she owned the place. I bristled, but the fear of what might happen if I confronted her kept me rooted to the spot. "You see," Karen continued, settling into my favorite armchair, "I had my suspicions about that little GPS tracker of yours, so I did a little digging. Turns out it was reported stolen from a government facility just a few weeks ago." She tisked, shaking her head in mock disappointment. Tesk, tesk, tesk. "I must say, I'm surprised at you. I never pegged you for the criminal type." I felt the blood drain from my face. How did you find out?" "Let's just say I have my ways," Karen said, examining her immaculately manicured nails. "And once I had that information, well, the rest was easy. All I had to do was make an anonymous tip to the authorities." My heart sank. You turned me in." "Of course I did," Karen snapped, her sweet facade suddenly cracking. "You think I was just going to let you get away with this? You're lucky I didn't call the cops myself and have you hauled off to jail." I stared at her, my mind racing. This couldn't be happening. All my carefully laid plans, all my efforts to bring her down, and she had outmaneuvered me at every turn. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Karen's lips curled into a cruel smile. "What do I want? Simple. I want you out of my neighborhood. For good." She leaned forward, her eyes glinting with malice. "You have 1 week to pack up and leave. If you don't," she shrugged, "well, let's just say the authorities might be paying you a visit. And trust me, they won't be as understanding as I am." With that, she stood and brushed past me, heading for the door. "Oh, and one more thing. If I so much as catch a whiff of you trying to expose me again, all bets are off." "Understood." I couldn't find the words to respond. I could only watch in stunned silence as she swept out of my home, the door slamming shut behind her. Once she was gone, I sank to the floor, my head in my hands. I had lost. Karen had won, and I was facing the very real possibility of going to prison. It was over. All of it. My dreams, my plans, my life. Everything had been reduced to ashes. And there was nothing I could do about it. The week passed in a haze of despair and resignation. I spent every waking moment packing up my belongings, knowing that if I didn't leave on my own, the authorities would be coming for me. As I loaded the last box into my car, I took one final look around my home, the place I had hoped to settle into, to build a life. Now it felt tainted, a reminder of my failure and Karen's victory. I climbed into the driver's seat, hands trembling, and pulled out of the driveway. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Karen standing on her porch, that infuriating smirk plastered across her face. "Enjoy your freedom while it lasts," she seemed to taunt. "Because next time, you won't be so lucky." I gritted my teeth, tears of rage and humiliation stinging my eyes. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I might have lost this battle, but I wasn't about to give up the war. As I merged onto the highway, a plan began to form in my mind. I couldn't let Karen get away with this, couldn't let her continue to terrorize innocent people. I had to find a way to expose her, to bring her down for good. But first, I needed to lay low, to regroup and figure out my next move. I couldn't just barge in guns blazing. That had already backfired spectacularly. No, I needed to be smarter, more strategic. I drove for hours, putting as much distance between myself and that wretched neighborhood as possible. Finally, as the sun began to set, I pulled into a motel off the interstate, checked in, and collapsed onto the bed, my mind racing. What was I going to do? How could I possibly turn the tables on Karen when she seemed to have all the power? As I stared up at the ceiling, a thought slowly began to take shape. Maybe I couldn't take Karen down directly, but perhaps I could find another way to get to her. If I couldn't beat her at her own game, maybe I could find a different angle, a weakness I could exploit. I sat up, a spark of determination igniting within me. I might have lost the battle, but the war was far from over. Karen had made a mistake. She'd underestimated me, and now I was going to make her pay for it. With renewed purpose, I pulled out my laptop and began to research. I had a plan, and this time, I wasn't going to let Karen win. Over the next few weeks, I worked tirelessly, piecing together my plan of attack. I scoured the internet, dug through public records, and even managed to cultivate a few local informants. Slowly but surely, a clear picture began to emerge. It turned out Karen's sordid history went much deeper than I ever could have imagined. Embezzlement, tax evasion, even a suspected connection to a money laundering scheme. The skeletons in her closet were legion. Armed with this trove of damning evidence, I reached out to a different journalist, one with a reputation for taking down corrupt officials and community leaders. This time, I was the one in control, carefully guiding the investigation and ensuring nothing could be swept under the rug. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of tense moments as Karen caught wind of the probe and tried desperately to cover her tracks. But I remained steadfast, providing the journalist with a steady stream of new leads and carefully documented proof. Finally, after months of painstaking work, the story broke. It was a bombshell, splashed across the front page of the local newspaper and lighting up social media. Karen's carefully crafted image of the upstanding community leader was shattered, replaced by the ugly truth of her crimes and misdeeds. I watched with a mixture of vindication and relief as the fallout unfolded. Karen was promptly ousted from her position on the HOA board, her reputation in tatters. Lawsuits and criminal charges quickly followed, and within weeks, she was facing the very real prospect of jail time. As for me, I was left with a bittersweet sense of triumph. I had won, but at what cost? The trauma and stress of the past months had taken a heavy toll, and I knew I could never return to that neighborhood, not without constantly looking over my shoulder. Still, as I packed up my belongings and prepared to start a new chapter elsewhere, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. Karen's reign of terror was over, and justice had been served. "Karma's a bitch," I muttered, a small smile playing on my lips as I drove away, leaving that chapter of my life firmly in the rearview mirror.